I think it's okay if you come.
Meanwhile, back on set, the crew are rehearsing a shooting scene in which Mr. Collins makes a shoddy attempt to bag a bird.
The guy who's playing the parson, he's going to be firing the gun. He supposedly shoots a peacock. But it's sort of an accidental discharge, if you like. He doesn't have the gun to his shoulder, he pulls the trigger accidentally. He's no experience of weapons at all.
Oh!
Oh!
I do believe I shot a peacock.
All's well, Mr. Collins? Birds are that way.
Oh, yes, yes.
No, I was...
Mr. Collins has had the unusual good fortune to shoot a peacock.
Oh, that is unusual. One peacock is probably sufficient.
Oh.
Please do not point your gun at me, Mr. Collins. Neither point it at Miss Price.
No,
Alex Kingston is playing a mother obsessed with finding rich husbands for each of her 5 daughters.
Mrs. Bennet in this version is certainly... she's different to the versions that one has seen. When Amanda Price enters into the world of the Bennets, she's arrived at the start of the story as we know it. And so you see Mrs. Bennet, but supposedly you're seeing her sort of through the eyes of Amanda, of what they were really like.
Do not obstruct any one of them in her quest for a propitious marriage. For if you do, and my estate is lost because of it, something may come over you, Miss Price, like a thief in the night.
Another early call for the Lost in Austin film crew, and today they're at the ornamental lake at Bramham Park, making last-minute preparations for a pivotal moment in the film.
What we've got to do is we've got to sweep to make sure there's nothing actually on the bottom that any of the actors or actresses could actually get caught up in or spike themselves, damage themselves, injure themselves on. So we're just doing a clean sweep of the between the lilies, coming out from the back wall, between the lilies and the side wall, just doing a search pattern to make sure there's nothing there.
Just have a look around about, at the colours that are about, because as you know, these have just been bought in. So as I say, have a look for sympathetic colours. You don't always get the time. This is very much a rush job, this one.
In Lost in Austin, the hero, Mr. Darcy, declares his love for the heroine Amanda Price after a swim in the lake.
What sort of effects can you anticipate by getting your sort of naked body as opposed to a dry-suited body into this water? Will it take my breath away?
It may do,
It
yes.
could do, yes, it could do.
The problems of it are, how long can we keep an actor in cold water? Clearly, we're not in the height of summer. It's freezing in the water. He will have he's got a wetsuit on underneath his outfit, but of course you can't see it when it gets wet, so clearly the wetsuit is just on his trousers. But he will be freezing cold, and that will be the challenge, trying to make a freezing cold day look a sensual, sexy summer day.
Everyone's looking at me and smiling with some sort of sadistic glee.
We did discuss whether we didn't do it. The audience expects us to do it. They're waiting for that moment. And Amanda is also our viewer. Amanda is our audience. And Amanda is waiting for Darcy to do it. In fact, as the story will show, she asks him to do it. It's her postmodern moment. Will you please do what's in the films?
There we go. Stand by to turn over.
The preparations and setting up have taken around 3 hours, but the final romantic lake scene is over in seconds.
Right, let's turn over on this. Turning on sound.
On board.
Sound speed. On board.
I am having a bit of a strange postmodern moment here.
Is that agreeable?
Oh, yes. Yes.
It was brilliant because I think the script and the situation that goes on is something that pretty much every female under the age of 70 is going to completely relate to through Amanda. And it was very exciting, and to be honest, Elliot should get his top off more often. I sound like an old perv.
It's November the 4th, and over at Weston Park near Ilkley in Yorkshire, the props team are hard at work recreating a summer wedding.
We've got a wedding scene later of Jane and Mr. Collins riding off in the carriage, so we're just dressing the church to make it look a little bit more festive for the occasion. We're going to cover up some of these gravestones that are slightly modern look. The crosses are kind of quite Victorian, so we're just going to plant some gravestones over the top of those, and just going to hope it clears up a little bit.
We're 1805, our period, and these are all very mid-19th century gravestones, very Victorian-looking ones, and certainly in an 18th century graveyard you wouldn't find a cross. It's a sort of symbol because since the Reformation, until about 1840, we never had a cross in a church even. Just sort of any religious symbols were sort of frowned upon.
Take 3A camera.
Nice and camera.
The scene we've been shooting today is the marriage of Mr. Collins to Jane Bennett, which of course should not happen and doesn't happen. And it's all come about because of Amanda trying to do her best to engineer the plot of the book back on course, but she keeps getting it wrong. So the wrong people are getting together. And so today we see the marriage of Jane and Mr. Collins. And for Mr. Bennett, it's a sort of turning point, because he's said already that he won't, he will do anything in his power to stop anyone marrying Mr. Collins, but he's let it happen. And he's let it happen, why? Because of the financial security it will bring the family, and he begins to regret that because he believes, as Amanda does in his heart of hearts, that marrying for love is the most honourable thing to do. But, it's an era where that was hard, and he begins to kick himself for it. And then when another of his daughters goes off and makes the wrong decision, he feels compelled to act. So today it's in terms of my character, because obviously the whole film is about me. In terms of my character, it's a bit of a turning point. But it's a painful wedding for Jane. It's not one that she really means in her heart of hearts. And Mr. Collins is a fairly vile creature, as we know, made even more vile by the vile guy Henry. And of course Mrs. Bennett's just over the moon because, she loves a good wedding. It's one off the list.
What a bloody mess.
Go there.
One of the most glittering scenes in the series is the formal dinner at Rosings, Lady Catherine de Bourgh's estate. Director of photography David Higgs uses classical painting as an inspiration.
You can always reference it back to paintings and how they look, in terms of Rembrandt, Vermeer. Those really kind of give you a lead into how things are looking. But that is a logic that extends not only just through to that period, but generally how lighting works anyway. What you have to try and do is really, I think, with light, hopefully bring the viewer into that world and make it real. You don't want to really have the lighting tacked in around the edges. And the phrase I kind of use, I'd rather make the lighting organic and build it within the scene, rather than having it kind of up there in the gods, pointing into it.
You have no function, Mr. Darcy, no purpose.
Of course not. What a disgusting idea. That is the raison d'etre of society. We are seen to be unoccupied.
Without purpose, a man is not a man. He is just an ornament, a toy.
Your ladyship really must demand the festival for the senses that is Miss Price's music.
You think you're the girl for him? Step off, Caroline, you conniving, smirking bumface. Did I say that out loud? It is a card game, Lady Catherine. You might know it as Humpty Dumpty.